Cool. Here we go. Welcome to episode 22 of School of Performance with Connor Mahannah. Good to have you, man. How you been?
I've been great, man. Yeah, I'm really excited to be on here, and it's great to see you. I know you're over there, almost on the other side of the world, so it's cool to be connected this way. Usually, it's on
Right.
the other side of the court, or we were teammates for a while, so it's great to see your face, bud.
You too, man. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been years, man. With Glenn as well, and with guests we get in the future. It's fun, man. It's fun catching up beyond the value and all the great topics we touch on. I always say like it's great catching up and getting to know the person on a deeper level. Yeah, for those, I know you on a personal level from our playing days together, from our playing days against each other. But for those that are listening right now, and for those that will listen in the future that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm currently a personal trainer, a master trainer at a studio called Rumble Boxing in Vancouver, Canada. I have my degree in kinesiology from the University of British Columbia. I was a multi-sport athlete, but as you alluded to, played basketball with my man Sean here at Capilano University, local kind of college level basketball here in Vancouver, but also background in hockey, soccer, baseball, basketball. I grew up passionate about athletics and training. Um, yeah, so I'm living here in Vancouver, and I work with some amazing clients. I do personal training on both the strength and conditioning side, as well as boxing. Boxing for the fun and conditioning side of things, not necessarily boxing for the sport or for
Mm-hmm.
fighting. So
Like
that's what
training
I'm
more.
doing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Multifaceted athlete, man.
Used to be, anyways. I got a few tricks up my sleeve still, I suppose, but I actually haven't touched admittedly, I haven't touched the basketball in
Really.
far too long. Yeah, yeah,
We gotta get a little like charity type game going. If I'm there in the summer, get everyone out from the college days and
yeah,
see who
man.
still got it. Get it going. Maybe at a beach court or something. Should be entertaining for us as well for
Yeah,
anyone who
yeah, yeah,
chooses to come down and watch.
yeah.
That
That'd be
could be a good
great.
time. That always
Yeah.
reminds me. Is this a side topic? We'll get a bunch of these along the way. But that always reminds me of like Steve Nash. The fact that he always played like soccer and basketball. And I remember I was learning in kinesiology and a bunch of the classes as well about developing like as many different motor abilities as you can at a young age. I remember there's this stat about whatever brain pathways you won't develop before the age of 10. It'll be a lot harder later on in life to play those sports. So that just kicked off that side of my brain that it's so cool to play so many sports and then kind of dial it down. What made you choose basketball? Do you remember? As like the main thing.
Yeah, I had a future in it. I was going to be
Yeah.
able to go like keep playing at the next level, so to speak. I was very serious. I went and tried out for the soccer team at Cap University as well. I'm not sure if you know that. I made
I
it to
remember
the
something about that,
final,
yeah.
yeah, like the top 30. I was going to play both sports. Um, it turned out really well that I just played basketball, but
Mm-hmm.
I gave up hockey because it's that like hockey is so competitive, and it was like either choose
Mm-hmm.
and play hockey and just play hockey, and drop soccer and basketball, or I could continue playing basketball and soccer. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of went with what I had a future with. I was a little more talented in basketball than I was hockey as well. You could consider me a bit of a
Mm-hmm.
grinder when it came to hockey. Um, and soccer,
Enforcer,
soccer,
some would say.
yeah, enforcer, yeah. So yeah, I played it because I could continue. I chose basketball because I could continue
Mm-hmm.
to play it in
That
school.
path.
So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember saying about that. I wonder if you would have been the first one ever to play like two sports at Cap. I wonder if someone's done that in the past.
There's definitely some dual athletes there, and some amazing
Yeah.
athletes have gone through there. While we were there, I am pretty sure I can't remember her name, but one of the women on the basketball team was also playing soccer, or there was,
Yeah, right. I remember
or it
saying
was
that. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean,
Dude, it
there's
seems like
lots of
so
people.
long ago.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you know this. I went to UBC and I got recruited to the rowing team, and I did a
I
year of
remember that.
rowing.
Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah, so
But
I
you didn't play
loved.
basketball too, did you? You didn't do
No,
rowing and
no,
basketball. No. Okay.
no.
At that point.
Coach Jordan Yu, shout out to it was Jay. He was pushing me to try to walk on, and you alluded to Glenn earlier, and he did walk on, and he made the team. And
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of focus on my school at that point, but I gave rowing a shot. That's by far, out of all the sports I played, the training for rowing was the most ridiculous, the hardest.
Really?
Running suicides for basketball is torture, but
It's
rowing
nothing
is like
compared
you gotta love pain to be rowing. So I did that for a year. They asked me to continue in the summer, and I'm like, you know what? I choose life. I want to have my summer to have a summer.
That's wild.
So I'm glad I did that. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I remember that. That's cool, man. Just trying new things, right? Just kind of dabbling in all these different things. I think it's such a cool experience when you look back at it. And if you had the option to do it, then like, why not, right? As long as you don't get injured and you can maintain your health and all that. It's interesting to talk about hockey. Like, out here, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're from Canada." I don't know about how. Like, I'm not gonna sound small-minded, but I think Canada is far less popular than the U.S. as far as like how much people know about it. So people are like, "You're Canada, it's so huge. Like, why don't you just play basketball over there?" And I'm like, "Listen, there's just some leagues developing now, but other than that, there's no pro leagues. Like, there's like 17 hockey leagues, and there's no pro league. I hope that's something that gets developed now. I know they have the ABL or the NBL and all those. I hope that gets developed over time, but people always look at me and they realize that hockey is just such a major thing out there. And like we said before, there's the hockey game in the background. It's something I haven't thought of. And so it's so far removed from a country like Israel. I guess there's roller hockey out here, but as far as the weather and all that, like, it's something I haven't even thought of in years. The fact that like to play on ice is so far removed and from the climate out here. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And I have a question written down here about I guess to kind of reminisce, but some of your favorite basketball moments from your career, whether it be in high school or at Cap or.
Oh man, that's a good question. I wasn't expecting that one. The best high school is high school, and that was literally the games again. Argyle versus Handsworth. For the listeners, I went to Argyle. Sean went to Handsworth. biggest rivalry was in that sport, and those packed gymnasium days where it's like half of the gym is blue and half of it is green and gold, and people are just like causing mayhem. And I feel like every game we played in that HSBC tournament was either like a overtime game or won by less than 3 points. For sure. So that was definitely some of the most exciting basketball. Playing at Cap was awesome. It was great to continue playing. I think we missed out on the provincials, nationals, by like one spot the 3 years that I was there. So, but like, great times traveling with the team and that type of camaraderie. I remember, we drove to Edmonton on a bus one time, and the bus drives up to Prince George. Those were always ridiculous. And
sometimes we'd have another team on the bus with us.
Yeah. It was like a Surrey team or whatever it was. We're driving up, sharing a bus with another team. Entirely. So, but those high school games, I mean, that was like, that was peak energy, peak like competition in terms of like the battle and the rivalry and having guys like you on the other side, where it was like, we played club together all summer long just to go battle it out at our high school teams. And that's what it was all about. And then we go back and be on the same team on club again in the summer. So, those are some my best favorite memories for sure.
That's cool, man. That takes me back. Yeah. Just those gyms, man, just how packed it was, the Argyle gym. And just the fact that we grew up playing 3D, playing club, like, which is in North Vancouver. And we'd all kind of get together from different areas around North Vancouver and train together in the summer. And then we'll be at those gyms on the sidelines, in the first rows in those chairs watching the older guys like Ty Kepke and Sean Burke and Sinclair Brown, and I hope I'm not missing Brent Frisbee, Kevin Shaw, Quinn Keith, Scott Lee, all these guys that were in 3D with us during the summer training, and we got to see like the behind the scenes. Now we get to be fans, and obviously each of us on their own side, on their home, the side of their home team, and then we get the privilege to be on the court and have those younger guys from 3D. Like Cam Yates and Jesse Jeffers and Andrew McGinnis and all those guys, Ryan Holmes. sit there, and it's surreal, man. Just like thinking back to that, it's really surreal. To get that opportunity, and there's crazy games. I don't think people understand, like especially people outside of Vancouver. I think it might have been the biggest rivalry in like high school basketball in BC, or at least in Greater Vancouver, like not just North Van. I remember those games with like Rob Sacker ended up playing in the NBA after, and Scott Morrison, who played I think not till long ago in Japan and in Asia. Broken rims, like bro, like NBA games didn't have this much entertainment. Like, and you go to a
Yeah.
local gym in Argyle in North Vancouver, and you get to watch these amazing games. Ty Kepker ended up playing in Hong Kong, if I'm not mistaken, for years. Sean Burke was a national type level player. Um, Man, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, like it's just surreal. Going back to that, it's really surreal. Um, and yeah, as far as Cap and all that, that was just, what jumped to mind is like it's like the Olympic Dream Team. Like we all get together in the summer and
yeah,
travel, and then we go back to our separate clubs during the year. Um, to our point of more like that mental side and what we really like gathered here today to touch on, I guess the first thing is what we touched on a little bit in our call beforehand. Is just our environment. I think that's really key, and it'd be really cool to open up with that. How our environment like affects our lives. How do we control that aspect of like what do we kind of let in, what do we keep out, what do we let affect, and how do we manage that? Let's start talking about that.
yeah, man. And there's a few things that come to mind when you say the environment. I mean, there's the environment that we're given, right? Where you're born
Hmm.
and how you raise your family and all of that. But putting that aside and assuming that we're talking to um, young adults and adults that are have the ability to move around um, and so there's like your physical environment, and then there's this new environment, or relatively new anyways, with social media and
Hmm.
the pervasiveness of how that's like it's with you everywhere. um so kind of like the first part of environment that I think of is that your close circle of friends, like who are your top five, going back to there's like Rogers
Hmm.
Mobile that had like your fave five or whatever it was, right?
Right. Anytime in it.
And yeah, and for me right now, like I'm spending a ton of time in the gym. I'm with clients all day long, all amazing people. And then you reached out, and I was like, wow, Sean used to be like my teammate. He was totally in my environment all the time, and we get to ball out, and we get to hang out after practice and all that. And then of course, kind of grow apart and go our separate ways professionally. Um,
Hmm.
but but getting present to if we actually take a look at who is in our environment on a daily basis, because we have our friends that are going to be there for life. We have our contacts that are going to be there for life, the ones that you don't see very often, but they're going to be at your wedding or whatever it is, right? Your
Hmm.
lifers. But those that you choose to be around, and those that listen to, those that you follow, I think that getting present to that, I'm getting present to it right now as I talk about it. I'm like, man, I
Hmm.
spend so much time on my phone, and for work and clients, and social media is so pervasive, as I said. But
Hmm.
um, the getting aware of like who we're spending time around and how they're affecting us. Like, are they giving us energy? Are we constantly
Hmm.
feeling drained after we're around them? Who are the people that are filling you up? Who are the people that are pushing you? Whether it's a coach, whether it's a best friend or a partner. Um, and then there's that other environment of social media where it's like half the things that come across my social media, I'm like, why am I looking at this? Like,
Right.
see, sometimes it's like, and we've all fallen into this trap of like comparing lives, right? And this is not a new
Hmm.
conversation about comparison and all of that, but for me lately, right, with this pandemic, I started to see all these people that are, and it's different in different areas of the world. But for here, anyways, it's like travel is slowly creeping back in, right, into our lives. And I see people that are like going on all these trips, and they come back for 2 weeks, and they're on the next one, and I'm trying to put my head down, and I'm just in work mode, and I'm like, oh yeah, the
Hmm.
world is a big place. Like, you know, getting a change of environment can really change your perspective.
Hmm.
So those are kind of the first things when it comes to environment, and
For sure.
really kind of considering who makes up the majority of your time, your interaction on a daily basis, and are they having a positive impact? And if not, taking a look at where else your energy might be better served.
There's a whole concept. I'm not sure who said it first, but show me the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and I'll show you your future self. In a way that how our environment shapes us. Yeah, I'm wondering how can we kind of become better in tune and picking up on that. I love what you said about social networks and Facebook and all that, because I think it's human nature to compare and contrast, and what Facebook and social networks. I'm just about to start doing lectures on that to teens. I think it's such an important concept. And a lot of people have said it, that it compares someone else's highlight tape to your behind the scenes. And it's tough to kind of disconnect from that subconsciously, and the effect it has on our brain, and kind of, because you get to see everyone else's, highlights and the best things they got going on, and what you got to do every day to make that stuff happen. And they might be doing it as well, but it's hard to kind of disconnect the two. As far as that, 'cause I think it's such a huge concept, and I'm glad you touched on it. Like, as far as comparison and all that, how can we better serve ourselves as far as motivating our success and not letting our environment like hinder our success?
Yeah. And the other, you saying that made me think of, this whole pandemic. It's like your environment. It's like for a lot of people, they haven't even had 5 people around. They haven't even had that type of exposure. And hopefully, as we can open things up safely and all that, it's like getting back into that mindset to, we're meant to be around people. We're meant to interact with people. And I know for me, my mental health was like, took a bit of a nosedive as I'm so just kind of confined, and it felt like my world was getting smaller. And it took a while for me to realize that I wasn't thinking big anymore. I was thinking, get up and grind, go home and sleep, get up and grind, go home and sleep, and not like creating the life I wanted to live. Like, I want to travel here. I want to do this. I can change these things. And it felt like I was so, I wouldn't say stuck, but like in the hamster wheel, so to speak. My Monday, Friday was the same thing, and my weekends were starting to look the same as well. And so taking a
like
pause,
habitual.
taking a pause and like, okay, is this actually what I want to be doing? Like, what are the things
That's
that
huge.
what do I actually want to be doing? Like, do I want to be golfing more? Do I want to get out in the mountains more? Do I want to, whatever it might be, and like making time for that and putting it in the schedule, because if not, around and around we go.
Life will take over.
Yeah. It'll
That's
just like
huge.
pass by. Yeah.
That self-introspection, yeah, we didn't even plan on this, but yeah, like that whole side of just taking a moment and asking ourselves, like, what is it that I really enjoy? What is it that really energizes me? What is it that really kind of fills my heart? I like to call it, with the kids I work with, like, how do you call it in English, but activities that I don't even look at the clock. Like, the hours can go by and I haven't even noticed, because I haven't looked at the clock. I got nowhere to be. I got like, all I am is here, present within this certain thing that I just love doing so much that there's nowhere else to be. Like, finding those things for ourselves. Yeah, how would you, like, it's really interesting to me to hear your process. Like, how do you go about, once you catch that habit of just work, what's that next stage to kind of getting back on track and being like, start creating our lives again? Like, if we're in that, especially in a pandemic, right, when it's all, everything's kind of relegated, you can almost say, what's that next stage? I think a lot of people are in that. I know I was in that, as well. I think we all met that at some point.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like, like, how do you get out of that? And one is the self-awareness of like, of taking a step back and kind of bringing our head out of water to breathe a little bit. And I actually think that what we're doing right now is the first step, is to actually talk about it, is to get present to the fact, like, hey, I've been working, I'm at the gym 10 to 12 hours a day, Monday to Friday. And that's like that's my regular. And until I address it, until I share with someone else, it just kind of lives in my head. Right. So I, and for me, this is just my process anyways, is that if I'm really stuck on something, whatever it is talking about it to someone that, that I can confide in, whether it's a buddy or my parents or partner, whatever it might be, and saying, hey, this is really what's going on. And I think that is something that has changed for me in the last few years. And I'm not saying I'm no expert at it, but I get present to the fact that things start to shift when I start to acknowledge them, that they're there. So if I can acknowledge and actually get present to the fact that I'm doing the same things over and over, and I'm wondering why I'm not happy because I'm not scheduling, or that I'm not feeling as fulfilled. It's not that I'm not happy, but not feeling as fulfilled because I'm not taking the time to step out and book those things in. So last year I actually made it a bit of a project to be like, okay, I'm going to plan ahead and schedule things in, opposed to just letting life happen to me.
Rather than doing it like spontaneously, like actually scheduling and taking the time to put it in.
Yeah, instead of like waking up on a Saturday morning and be like, oh, what should I do for this weekend? Is like planning. I mentioned golf earlier. It's like, I was a month in advance that I had to plan to book a tee time last summer to get a prime time slot because golf got really popular, and I forgot about it. And a month later, I was like, oh man, I'm so glad I have this booked. And for people that out there, they're like, what are you talking about? That's so easy. You just like schedule things. For me, it was just like, it was like a bit of a revelation. Like, oh, I really have to go and plan things. Otherwise it doesn't happen. Otherwise it doesn't happen. So first step for me is to acknowledge it, have a conversation about it. And then it's brainstorming and like, okay, so how do we shift things and getting other people's perspective and opinions? Again, going back to that circle of influence and of your environment, it's important to have those people that are really listening for your future to be successful, right? A lot of times we hear ourselves, or we think about ourselves as smaller than what others around us think of us as, right? And I'm totally guilty of that. I've got people in my life that think that, I'm bigger, better, have all these opportunities, and sometimes the conversation in my head is that I'm not worthy, that I'm not worthy of having it all. And there was a quote I put on I got a whiteboard above my bed, and every now and then I'll change quotes and stuff like that, and there was a quote on there for about a year, and it said, how good are you willing to have it? Right? How good are you willing to have it? And so that was just something that kind of struck me. So
no, that's huge.
Yeah.
Before that, like that, we could do a whole episode on that. That's huge. I'd love to delve into it. Before that, just kind of reinforcing how important what you said is. You said so precisely, the fact to like bring attention to it. Like if we continue living our lives as if nothing's wrong and nothing's bothering us, and kind of avoiding, the pink elephant in the room that we really want to cause change and we really want to do something about, it's going to stay the same, right? Life's going to take over unless we take that action and bring forth, attention to it and start talking about it and really getting it above surface. Now we can do something about it. Because as long as it's kind of going around in the background, I think that's so key. It's something that's so obvious to us, but at the same time, it's so easy to just let the habits roll and let life kind of take over. And then you're doing the same thing over and over. And before you know it, you're deep in it. And now it's kind of hard to climb out, because you've built it up for so long.
Yeah. Like using the analogy of basketball, it's like having your head down and not knowing the score until there's 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And now you're like, oh, wow, I should have changed the play.
Now I got to deal with this
strategy. Right now now I'm kind of like shorthanded. I don't know what to be doing. It's too late for the full court press. Right. So it's like,
there's certain actions I can't take now, 2 minutes to the end, that probably I could have done.
Yeah. And so it's getting present to the scoreboard of your life. And that could be in any area. It could be in finances, could be a relationship, it could be your goals, career, whatever it is. But like getting present to what's the score? What's the score and what do you want that number to be? And maybe you're up by 10 in finance, but you're down by 20 in your love life. So it's like, but getting real with the score. And like, if I'm the coach of a game and I don't know what the score is, I can't make adjustments on the fly.
That's huge.
So, and I think there's a lot of people will bring a lot of significance to what the score is, right? Oh, I'm down by 20 points in my love life. I suck, or I'm not good enough, or no one will love me. But it's like, if you don't just address how it is now, and
Mm-hmm.
just leave it at that. Like, it's just a score, right? Then you can make adjustments to change the score.
Right.
But until you get really present to what it is and try to bring nothing to it, like try to bring, like, there's no right or wrong or good or bad about the score. The score is just the score.
Right.
The scoreboard doesn't care who's up by 20. The score is the score,
Right. Yeah. It just
right?
it is factually there.
Exactly, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then if we can address it as it is, now we have some power. Now we can take some power. Now we can
Mm-hmm.
make some changes. Now we can change the plays. Now we can change our
Right.
dating profile, whatever it might be, right?
Right. Now you got to say on it. Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like when you say like people give like we give so much significance to the score. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's like we give so much meaning. Like we make it mean something about ourselves where
Everything. Yeah.
nothing's changed in our external environment. Like everything's
Yeah.
exactly the same. But now this external thing is gonna dictate like how I feel about me. Like you said, am I
Yeah.
worthy? Do I deserve to have this type of life or whatever it may be? And yeah, it's huge. Coming back to it, just that awareness, that bringing awareness to it. Like you said, like I love that sentence. We're gonna use that later as well. Like as a highlight, I'll send it to you. Being aware of the score.
Yeah.
Like being aware of the score. Now that you're aware, now you can do something about it. Beforehand, if you weren't aware and stuff was just going on automatically, there's nothing we can do about it. You're not like this. The first stage to any change is awareness, is bringing it to the forefront. And like
Yeah.
you said, factually, just look at what is out there. What is the score like 10-5, whatever. Like this area looks like that. This area might be greater. It just is what it is. There's no meaning there. Take it back to the basics and just factually, this is what's going on. It's not good. It's not bad. It is what it is. Now, like you said, we can do something about it. I wanna touch on that, on what we kind of it's such a huge area, but it's that whole idea of like self-worth or self-love, being enough. I'll never forget. I know we know each other through Landmark a little bit, and I'll tell you a cool story that I always love sharing. Getting deeper with our guests because we do have that shared history. We'll kind of touch it towards the end with Landmark, but I'll never forget that sentence from Landmark where they would reiterate all the time, "I am complete and perfect, just the way I am, and just the way I'm not."
Mm.
And what always really caught my attention is just the way I'm not. Like
Yeah.
nothing needs to be present within me for me to be okay. Like it's just the way I am right now. I think with perfectionism, and maybe you felt that as well. I can speak about myself. That whole idea of like always in pursuit of excellence, always in pursuit of the next thing. Maybe from an athlete's mentality that I got it. I can again speak only for myself. And that thing that like when this happens, then I'll be okay. But it'll never end, right? Because then you get that thing, you want the next thing, you want the next thing, you want the next thing, and until we are able to get to that point where at whatever's present right now is what it is, and that is perfect. And from that we can build. Is this a pursuit that never ends, right? Because the grass is always greener, and there'll always be another target, and there'll always be another goal, and there's always be another championship to win, or another test to pass, or another job to get, or a raise to get, or whatever it may be in life, right? So I think that's so cool, and yeah, just to touch on that, kind of develop that whole idea of what we said before, like that self-worth, that self-respect, like it's such a small world, right? But remind me the sentence you had on the whiteboard where you said,
How good are you willing to have it?
right? So I have on my mirror, how good can you have it today? So it's very similar, like that whole thing of how do we look at life? Like what sort of
Mhm.
things do we as a base expect to be coming in? You know what I mean? I think that's like allowing that opening for that in life creates a huge change.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd
Mhm.
love to get deeper into that if that's something that where would you
Yeah, I
want to
mean,
take it? What does that bring up for you?
like on the concept of self-worth.
Yeah, I guess self-worth and kind of accepting ourselves just the way we are, and then using that as a base point.
Yeah, I mean, man, self-worth, that's the idea of like comparing ourselves again and
Hmm.
to other people and their level of success and what they're doing. It's such a trap, and it's a human thing in my
Hmm.
non-expert opinion, right? But
Hmm.
that we all do it. Um, and I think for me, I think in the last, I kind of noticed like 27, 28. So I'm 32. I just turned 32. Okay. And so I think there was like a bit of a mental shift for me about 5 years ago, where I'd never had the experience of anxiety. And like, it never was really a thought. I was like, oh, so that's something that other people have. And like 27, 28 started to creep around, and I started kind of thinking more about my future and thinking about where I was at and, where I wasn't, and comparing myself to some of my buddies that were more successful or friends that were traveling the world. And then I was like getting this sensation of like being uncomfortable, and I didn't really know why. And I felt uncomfortable kind of sitting still. Like I needed to be doing something. I needed to be doing more. I needed to be more. And then, in the last 5 years, I'm like, oh, that's kind of my experience of anxiety. And now I'm a lot more present to it. Doesn't mean it's gone away, but yeah, self-worth is such an interesting thing, because the conversation, that voice in our head that we have, it can take us down some really, long, sometimes dark pathways. And I think it really takes being present with yourself and acknowledging where you are and where you're not, and being okay with it, and being okay to sit still was another thing for me. Being okay not doing something that's progressing, my career forward or whatever it was, and for at least a short period of time to like relax, quote unquote. So I mean, where am I going with that? My point being is,
No, it's cool, man. Just sharing.
I totally suffer from comparing myself to others, and thinking I should be doing more, or thinking that, things should be different by the time I'm 32, right? My goal, one of my goals for this year, is to break into the Vancouver real estate market. It's one of the craziest real estate markets, I think, globally. I don't know. It's probably in the top 5.
For sure.
And then it's, I've only been at it for the last 3 or 4 months in terms of like looking around seriously, and it's like, it's the biggest decision, and I feel like if I don't make this decision soon, I'm going to miss out, or the market's going to, I'm going to be outpriced out of the market. And so-and-so already bought a place, and so-and-so is like they own 3 places. And so, I need to let that go, and just like, hey, listen, I'm going to find the place that's going to be perfect for me when I find the place that's perfect for me. And try to bring some peace to that experience and the conversation I have with myself around it. So, I mean, I struggle with it. Imposter syndrome is another one. Talking about self-worth. I mean, I've been in fitness for, over a decade, and, I wasn't planning on sharing this, but so I just got promoted to the title of Master Trainer at Rumble. And I put that in air quotes for those that can't see me doing the air quotes there. Because, Rumble, that's Rumble's title. And it's just a title to say that I'm a senior trainer there. I've been there since it opened up 2 years ago. I got my degree. I've got lots of experience in that field. But to call myself a master in anything at the age of 32 makes me feel uncomfortable. And it's like, it sounds ridiculous just saying it. Oh, Connor's a master trainer. I'm like, what? I could name off the top of my head 20 other trainers that are in the city alone that I feel are more qualified than myself. And I have to let it go. Because
exactly.
my clients probably have a different experience. It's those that have been with me, a bunch of my clients have been with me for over a year, and that's a sign that I'm doing something right. And I've got lots of great results. But that's a funny thing, like, is the titles and that whole self-worth thing. Like, I don't think I'm worthy of the title master of anything. That's ridiculous. I'm only 32. But it's just a name, and it's just, talk about adding meaning to a name, or adding meaning to things. And so sometimes I'm at work, even though I'm one of the more senior, if not, one of the most senior trainers there in terms of experience, and I suffer from imposter syndrome, and it's it ebbs and flows, and some days are better than others, but I definitely suffer from anxiety at work, and that's a real thing for me.
I think you're experiencing it. It's just being human. Like we said before, like that whole comparison and stuff is a part of being a human being. Like, we experience it so many different ways. And how you said it before was so precise and so cool with the scoreboard. because it really like it gives you that vivid physical analogy that the scoreboard is not going to change if I feel worthy or if I feel amazing or if I feel shitty about myself. Scoreboard is the same. Like you're still a great trainer. You're still, you know, you have all your customers. You still have this. What's up to Kelly, to call his mom here in the comments. I love Kelly, man. Yeah, like just detaching from that meaning, and just looking at the facts. And the facts are, you've been at it for a while. You got all these customers. You got this whatever, and you know this pay or whatever you want, whatever defines your thing. And when you come back to that, everything kind of seems a little bit simpler. Like I can share my whole process with the podcast and with ball, and is this kind of definition of success. We'll touch it at the end. I always have a question that I like to end on, but as far as from my side, just success being just doing the best I can, just doing the best of my capabilities. Like everything external is out of my control. Like if we take basketball, for example, like the refs, my minutes, injuries within the game at least are out of my control. My teammates, the crowd, the floor, weather conditions, whatever it may be, is out of my control. The only thing in my control is knowing that I'm doing the best of what I'm capable of. And that's something only I can know. And then it kind of takes it back to the factual side of things. And for me personally, that's like all the anxiety and all that. I think we've all experienced it, whether it be in sports or work or whatever comes up. Yeah, I love that scoreboard now. You just look at what is, like as what is on the court, whatever the score is at the time, and now it's up to us to decide, like, do we want to do something about it? Is it something that we're willing to accept and continue doing, or is it something we want to change?
So and sticking with that point there, it's like, how many times, Sean, for you, have you looked up the scoreboard, been down by 20 points, and we're like, all right, let's rally a comeback. Right. Instead of saying, oh, you know, we suck and throwing the towel and giving up. Right. It's not like, you know, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. Right. None of these guys. I think the other night there was a team I can't remember what team who was playing, but they were down by like 35 points or something like that. It was an NBA game just like last week. Came back and won the game. It's like, if you look at the scoreboard and add meaning to it, right, without just removing the score is the score. Great. Now go out and play. And if we can take that analogy, you know, to your point of like what's in our control in our lives. So take the scoreboard of the area of your life and just take what's in your control. What's the one action I can take in this area that I want to work on, and remove the right or wrong, good or bad, how I feel about it, and move it forward. And a lot of times, in my experience, that's like picking up the phone or getting in communication with someone and talking to them about whatever that topic is. Because if I sit over here and try to handle it here with just me, well, I'm having a conversation with myself, and it's usually doesn't go very far.
Right. Action. It's a world of action, right? All the conversation with ourselves, all the thoughts, all the feelings we experience, which are totally legitimate, by the way. Like, I don't want anyone to get me wrong. Like, it's part of being human. It's part of the human experience, and it's going to be there. Whether we like it or not, it's going to be a part of who we are. But none of that changes what happens in life. Life is a world of action. Action is the cure-all is one of my favorite sentences. There's also one before how we talked about how just kind of sitting by ourselves. I could really connect to what you said about just sitting and like kind of putting my feet up and relaxing and like being okay with that and not just being in pursuit all the time. And there's a great quote about I think it's Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher, that says all of man's problems stem from our inability to sit in a room by ourselves. Like that's huge. That's really deep. Like if you take that to really kind of sit and think about that, just that thought process that we have of ourselves and creating problems and, you know, comparisons and everything we've talked about so far. It's really interesting. Just on a side note, and I don't know if I've told this, maybe a couple guys that I've played with know this, but you were saying like if you're in a court and you're down 20, like you're not dwelling on that. You're not. For me personally, it's funny. I don't look at the score. I don't look at the score when I play. Unless it's like last 5 minutes, I don't look at the score. Like I could care less because I know what I got to do, sort of thing. That's my personal thing. But I think it completely touches on what we talk about like do what's in your control, take whatever action you need at that point. Like I sense the game for sure. Like if we're down, if we're up, if that person's hot on the other team, I'll tell my guys like that, like strategizing for sure. But as far as the scoreboard, unless it's last 5 minutes, like you got to do what you got to do. It shouldn't really change. That's my own belief. It shouldn't change if we're up 20 or if we're down 20. I should be playing the same way. I should be trying to reach my goals. I should be playing the hardest I can. I should be doing whatever's in my control to help my team be in a position to win when it comes down to the end. So yeah, it popped in mind when you said that. And that way you're not living in meanings, right? You're living in whatever factually is happening on the court. Not like if we're down 20, oh my God, like our brain. It's helped me personally I've never thought about this, but for me personally, it's helped me detach from that negative side. Like, oh my God, we're down 20. Like, what am I going to do? Should I change the way I play now? Should I play more conservative, whatever, if we're up, or should I be more aggressive if we're down? And then you're in your head, you're not on the court. You know what I mean? Like you're in a battle with yourself. It also, you can take it to like when people trash talk. I've had a bunch of guys in the last couple of years here that they know who they are. If they see this, I don't know if they speak that have been way better at trash talking.
Probably a few back from high school and college as well. Let's be honest.
I'm not touching on that. I'm talking about the 7 years here in Israel, but for sure in high school as well. Yeah, I could think of a couple, but that have been better at trash talk than ball. You know what I mean? And their whole purpose, I don't know if they're aware of it, doesn't really matter, but their whole purpose is to get us, whatever, an influential player in the game, to be dealing with the trash talk rather than be dealing with the game. And that's a great analogy to be like, if we're constantly dealing with our thought processes and our emotions, again, completely legitimate. I'm not saying push those things aside and not give them any room. They're part of the human experience and they're a key part of the human experience. Like we need those things to drive us, to push us to whatever. But if we're dealing with our thought process, if I'm dealing with your trash talk right now, I'm not dealing with what I need to do on the court. You know what I mean? It's a great analogy. Same thing as if I'm dealing with my thought process, I'm not dealing with what you said so precisely about what action do I need to take to push whatever goal I have in mind and whatever things that is that I want to get done. That's not happening if I'm in my head, if I'm in my heart. You know what I mean? Like it's a motivation. It could be for sure setting goals and getting that energy. But unless I take action, like nothing's going to move.
Yeah. You mentioned trash talk and you relate into sports and I'll relate it back to life. It's like the biggest trash talker that you have in your life is yourself. Right. And it's ignoring that. It's ignoring your own trash talk about yourself. And I'll speak for myself, but I could confidently say that we all suffer from, trash talking ourselves at some point in some areas of our life.
For sure.
And it's like, the elite, the best of the best in terms of performance, in terms of sports or athletics or entrepreneurship, whatever, they put that aside and they get in action anyways, despite the trash talk, because their goal or their target or whatever that is bigger than the conversation that you're having with yourself. Like to have that skin in the game. And I think, relating it to like the clients that I have, it's like I have to get them thinking about a bigger picture that's outside of these 10 reps of push-ups that they might not want to do because they think they suck at push-ups. It's like it doesn't matter. You said you wanted to hike this mountain. Like we're actually in here doing push-ups so that you can go hike that mountain in the summertime or whatever it is. So it's like getting people to having, going back to, you mentioned landmark earlier. So having a possibility or having something that lives as bigger than the trash talk. What is the thing that you're striving for that's bigger, that's going to draw you to action despite the negative self-talk? And I think
a bigger context.
Exactly. And I think for a lot of my clients at work, that I'm the catalyst to remind them that their own trash talk isn't worth their time, and let's get into action, put in the work because you said you wanted to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And I'm here to remind you that's what we're doing. That's what we're working towards. Now we're going to take the actions here in this, I'm with them for an hour, hopefully more during a week. And the ones that I see that have that shift in mindset are the ones that come back to me and they're like, hey, I haven't seen you since last week, but I worked out 4 times on my own. I haven't had a cigarette since I saw you. And I'm like, wow, what shifted? Like, well, you talked about like, you got me really present to why I'm doing this. Like,
Right.
Simon Sinek, what is your why, right? There's got to be something
Exactly.
that's bigger that pulls you past, pulls you through your own trash talk. I like that trash talk analogy. I hadn't even
I
considered
like
that.
it.
I trash
Look at
talk
us,
myself.
man.
I wake up and I trash talk myself. I go to bed, I'm trash talking
Yeah.
myself. And it's like,
Yeah.
God, shut up, Connor.
Being human, man. Right?
Yeah,
I like that.
seriously.
Kelly
Yeah.
wrote here, it's not, I think it relates back to landmarking. Kelly, if you're on, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but she wrote, it's not even your trash talk. Like this whole concept that our self-talk a lot of times is not something that we came up with. It's something that was kind of brought onto us from our childhood, from whatever, from an external thing. At some point in life, there was an external event that made us kind of kickstart those gears and start talking to ourselves in a certain way. And yeah, bro, that voice doesn't matter. Like it's gonna be there regardless, but it has so little, like it could if we let it, right? But in factuality, it has so little, it has no effect on what's happening in the real world, right? On
Yeah.
what's happening physically out there.
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah, we're running, bro. I know we could take this talk and do it 3 hours if we both had the time, but we
Nobody
got
wants to hear
limited
me
time.
talk that long. Yeah.
I'm sure they do. I'm
Yeah.
sure they do. I'd love to. I want to touch a little bit on accountability and kind of like the power of our word. How would you define that? How would you define accountability in our lives?
I mean, yeah, integrity is something that, family and sports is kind of instilled in me. And I think, being your word, doing what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it by in the conditions that you promised
Mm-hmm.
is, it for me anyways, it leaves when I'm in integrity, it leaves me feeling fulfilled. I'm in action. I have an experience of like connection with people and myself. And when I'm, not being accountable to my word or not doing what I said I was going to do, that's when the trash talk comes in, or that's
Right.
when, oh, you're not good enough, you're too lazy, you're too this, you're too
It
that.
feeds it.
And yeah, and it's I think it's a bit of a positive feedback loop, right? And I don't mean positive as a good thing. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you're out of integrity, it will continue and continue until you break the cycle, until
Mm-hmm.
you acknowledge what's going on, acknowledge either with yourself or with people in your lives that you're, not being accountable to, have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation about it and kind of recreate your word. And when I say recreate your word, it's kind of like, hey, I said I was going to come, I was going to meet you at the gym and we were going to practice. We were going to, shoot 500 shots together and I blew you off. It's like, but I promise I'm going to be there on Sunday on time. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
owe you 1,000 this week because to make up for
Right.
last week. And that really, it creates the space for people to, trust you, trust your word, that you're
Right.
accountable. You said you're going to do what you're going to do. And then people will start to listen to you a certain way, that you're trustworthy, that they want to be on. Those are the teammates. Those are the leaders that people want to be with.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of people that are out there that are flaky and they kind of half commit, they dip their toe in the water and they hum and they haw. But the people that we really want to follow, the ones that are like, no, I'm doing this by this date and this is what I'm going to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And when they deliver that, you're like, oh, this person's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to me, integrity is a big thing. And I'm not sitting here preaching as if like I'm out of integrity all the time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I just get present to it. And when I'm aware of when I'm out of integrity, I now have the opportunity, right? Doesn't mean I always do it, but I have the
Right.
opportunity to restore integrity, get in communication,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of either whether it's repromise or say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And you can trust that I'm going to honor my word. I'm going to take the actions necessary to fulfill on it. And I think if you have that, it doesn't matter like what industry you're in or what you're trying to do, that'll take you places.
Right. I think that concept, like you said it so nicely about reestablishing your word, reestablishing that integrity. I think as people, like we take it for granted sometimes. Like when something doesn't happen, because life happens, right? Like life doesn't stop. If we set something up and we don't show up, or if we said we're gonna do something by a certain day and it doesn't happen, that concept of giving attention to it, whether it be external with another person or even with ourselves, has so much power. From my personal experience, and I'm sure from yours too, just giving attention to it. Like that didn't happen. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm reestablishing that. I'm writing it down again, and now it's gonna happen. Now with another person, like that thing didn't happen. Like not just blowing it off and pretending like it's all good and never mentioning it ever again. I think that's a lack of integrity if we look at the other side. But reestablishing that word, like, yeah, I missed you, I got you. Like the same way, what comes up to mind for me is like on the court. It's funny. It's amazing. I do it with kids all the time. Like I notice it in the podcast and every area of my life, like how much of an analogy to life sports is. It happens on the court. You make a mistake. Are you not gonna what's the word? Address it and just keep going like nothing happened? Or are you gonna be able to come to the bench and be like, listen, guys, my bad. That last play is on me. I owe you guys one. That's huge. That allows, like, I don't know how else to explain, but it allows like a brand new page for something new to come forth now. If we never address it, if we never talk about that broken integrity, that broken word, and it's not broken like a bad thing. Again, like you said, no one's perfect. We're all human. No one's going to be in integrity 100% of the time. It just doesn't exist, and it never will. But bringing attention to it, addressing it, now it kind of kills, like, I don't know what you would call it, like bad energy, bad vibes. Like it's. I would imagine if I use an analogy, like take a page that's got like I remember Laming, they would do it on a whiteboard. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get that done soon. Take a blank page and kind of scribble all over it. And now try and write a sentence on that page. You kind of gotta like work around that huge scribble, and you gotta try to maneuver it around to make that thing happen. But as soon as you bring attention to it, as soon as you address it, as soon as you take responsibility for it, I would even call it. Now you got that blank page. Now you can create a new with so much more flexibility, so much more like renewed energy, rather than trying to work like around this thing that you don't want to touch and you don't want to be maybe accountable for. Maybe you're afraid of. I'll say we. Maybe we're afraid of what people are going to think, how people are going to judge us, how we're going to look. You know what I mean? All these things where it comes back to that scoreboard is just meaning. Like factually, I said that thing was going to happen. It didn't happen. Now I got to deal with it. If I address it, if I put attention to it, it's going to be a lot easier to do it again, my personal opinion, than if I don't address and pretend like nothing happened. And now I feel like it's kind of like trudging through mud. Now I got to like, it's kind of like just things layering up and I got to fight through it to make that thing happen.
Yeah.
The last thing, I guess is kind of just to continue this. It's so huge. You know what pops up to mind is I remember they would talk about in Landmark, they would talk about, the leaders, the lecturers, the presenters, and I remember asking one time like what it takes to do that job, like what it requires of them. I'm sure you know a lot of this too from your family and everyone that works there. And they said like they bring like complete integrity to their lives, like to the point where they call like that person that they whatever lied to or didn't years ago. And I don't know if that happens in reality or not, but just the concept of it is so huge to kind of like think about telling one friend that you set up a training session with and he didn't show up and you brought integrity back to that and you reestablished your word like you defined it so greatly before. Think about doing that like all across your life with everything. And all of a sudden you don't have this brand new page, you got this whole brand new notebook to work with, and now this whole book that you can like now create with. So I guess the last like concept to touch on is just like where does it show up in our lives, like to kind of talk about like how integrity affects our life, and if we're talking about that path to success, not even the path to success, but that path to kind of like building the life we want, how does integrity affect that?
And so, you know, on the topic of integrity, I just realized, you know, we've been throwing out this term landmark, and people probably, what the heck is landmark? It's a personal development course. You can you can look it up. Sean and I have both done it, and it's had a huge impact on my life. But landmark is so landmark is a personal development course. You can look it up or not, doesn't matter. But that's a good point. So integrity is, in terms of performance, man, I mean, I don't think nothing really gets done without integrity. Right. Like I mean, nothing gets done effectively. I'll alter that without integrity, because it just makes things work. It makes businesses work. Imagine like in a work environment when people don't complete what they said they were going to complete when they were going to complete it by, right? People missing deadlines, that doesn't work. Right. And that's why you have managers, because and project managers, because you got to hound people to do the job they said they were going to do
Integrity
anyways.
influencers, I guess.
Yeah, seriously. Like integrity
Yeah, it's
police.
true.
It's like
It is what it is.
it's glorified babysitting. Imagine being in an environment, and like it's a commonly used analogy or reference or example, I should say, is like Navy SEALs, the
Right.
most elite teams in the world. Really, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, anyways. And like they get things done with there's no bullshit, there's no conversation about it. It's like we're doing this, we're one unit, we got each other's back, and there's like integrity in everything that gets done there, because if not, the consequences are life and death in their case.
Right.
Luckily for us, it's like, oh, I might get fired from my job, or a client might get pissed off at me, and that's like, no big deal. But yeah, in my opinion, when I take a look back at businesses that I've worked for and teams that I've been on, the ones that have integrity are the ones that went places, that got things done, and really made a positive impact on their environment.
No, that's huge. I'd urge people that whoever's joined us now and whoever's going to listen to this in the future to kind of take a look, like what we talked about before, that self-introspection, kind of taking that pause and seeing what works, what doesn't work. Like, where could we be more in integrity? Where is our word maybe lost a little bit of its magic, and kind of bring that back, reestablishing our word, restoring that integrity. It's huge. And from my personal experience, I noticed that all of a sudden things kind of run smoother, like things that weren't happening before, that's external to us, that's out of our control, all of a sudden are happening more because of that as a base. Call it energy, call it, the universe or whatever. It's true. Like, it is what it is. Once we become that word, everything kind of works smoother. We're here towards the end. We're just at about an hour. I really do want to share with you, and we kind of jumped right into it. I never got to talk about how I experienced you throughout Cap, and it's funny because I think it's human nature to, when you got that rivalry and you got so many people in the stands, and we're so young too. Like, people got to remember we're like 16, 17, with packed gyms and kind of, and like, I don't know about you, but people asking us in the halls, like, what happened with Argyle? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't call it pressure. I've experienced pressure on the court in the last 7 years, but at that age, it's something. It's very unique. And I'm proud of myself of being able to put that aside and really learning from guys like you, learning from guys like Leons, learning from guys like Glenn Chu, and the other coaches at Argyle. Because honestly, man, like you had a great influence on me, like as a leader and as a basketball player and just as a person, man, and seeing your work ethic and seeing how you approached everything was business oriented. Like, I remember that from a young age. It was like business oriented, and it was really cool to see it. It gave me a lot of motivation, and to share with you kind of towards the end with Landmark. I might get emotional, but because it's something we've never talked about. But so we talked a little bit about Landmark. It's a self-development course. I'm sure it had a great impact on you and your whole family. I can say from myself, like, it really changed my life. And I know my mom was into it, but I don't know if I would have given it a chance I don't know if you remembered it, but you took a bunch of our guys from Cap to like an intro, and I got goosebumps right now. Like, I'm shivering just thinking about it. But it seemed like something so small maybe at the time, but for me, like, it was the first step of like a life-changing experience. And there was a point in that evening where they said, who would like to come up and share? And I'm like, I'm jokes, like I'm charismatic, I got energy, like I'm cool, let's do it. I go up there and they asked me, I don't remember what it was they asked me, but it touched on something with my childhood, with my parents, with whatever was happening in the background of my life, I would call it. And bro, like this emotion that's been pushed down like to the core of my gut is all of a sudden like coming up. And I remember, I don't know what it looked like from the outside. I can remember the experience, and I remember being like, feeling that stuff comes up and just being like kind of like, oh, like being done with it and getting off stage. Like, for those who don't know what it is, it's you literally like stand on stage in front of people. It's not a lot of people, but standing in front of on the stage in front of anyone
public speaking
will cause that. And it was an emotional thing. And I left that evening. I remember I was gracious and like it was cool, but I left that evening kind of like, I'd love for you to notice that, like, ready to deal with something that I've been holding like so deep. And if it wasn't for that evening, I don't know if I would take Landmark. I don't know, but Landmark really changed my life. Like, and that's kudos to you. That's kudos to Kelly. That's kudos to your family and everyone that's influenced me within that world. Yeah, like that was really life changing for me. Like, I remember taking a course, I let all this stuff out that was really holding me back. And the way I would describe Landmark is like the first course, I was letting everything out, and the second course, you kind of create your life now with that kind of brand new page, that blank page, like we talked about before. And that was pro ball. That was a dream that I'd kind of let go of. And if it wasn't for Landmark, and honestly, like I can authentically say, if it wasn't for you in that evening, like who knows? I always say, like I tell people all the time, I think I'd be working like a 9 to 5. I know, maybe do physio, maybe do something that Kines degree. But yeah, like it led to a life of pursuing that dream, and it wouldn't have been possible without that evening. And I acknowledge you for that, and I acknowledge you for the type of person you are, man, and just being like a living, what I wrote in that Facebook thing, not from the heart. I don't write that thing to like market the episode. I write those things because it's how I feel. It's living I acknowledge you for just being a living leader. Like, I think everyone that you work with, whether it be in training or whatever endeavors, whether it be real estate in the future, and I can speak for myself, like in college and high school in the past, like just leading by example, man. Like it's really, there's not a lot of people like that everything they touch is they lead by example, and I acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, brother. And I mean, when you talk about integrity and getting into action, you called me and I could hear it in your voice. I'm like, this guy's on fire. Like, this guy is there's no trash talk that's stopping this guy right now. He's in action. He's, you got like, I don't know, over 20 some episodes under your belt on this podcast, and playing professional ball in a different country. I mean, different country than when I played ball with you, right? It's like, I mean, I don't know the percentage of people in Canada that go on to play professional basketball, but it's a really small percentage, man. So, I'm super grateful for you for sharing that and for the acknowledgement. I got it. Thank you. I'm so glad that you, had the experiences that you had, and that you're out where you're at right now, because it seems like you're in a great place. And right now you're out here having these conversations to try and, inspire and influence and motivate people to get after their life the way that you are doing it now. So you are the example, and I think everyone's is actually following you. They're not following me, but I appreciate that, man.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it was important for me at that point and that time in Cap. And I talked about in the conversation with Glenn as well, like so many great people to come from such a small place and even such a small timeline, would it be a year or 2 or 3 or whatever we spent there. It's really, it's not a given, man. I don't take it for granted. And bro, when I'm out there during the summer, maybe next summer with Corona and everything, we gotta do a little charity game. We gotta do an all-star celebrity game.
You kind of did a bit of a call out to listeners and earlier, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes ago, and I wanted to leave with one, because I know we're a little over time here, but going back to the scoreboard, like my invitation to anyone listening is to look at the scoreboard in every area of your life, or the areas of life that are important to you, and get present to what's the score. If you were to score, if you want to rate it, what would you give it? And then take a look at what are the play, like using the basketball analogy, what plays are you running to have the score be as it is? What defense are you running? So in life, like, what actions are you taking or not taking? What conversations are you having or not having in the areas of life that really, really matter to you? And get present to the score. And then once you're present to the score, and you are now looking at what actions you're taking in that area that are having the score be what it is, how do you change it? Right? What's the new play? What's the new action that you can take to change the score? So that would be my invitation to anyone listening, whether it's in your career or finance or love life or whatever it might be, and just getting our head above the water for a second and going, okay, what's actually going on in my life that's not working, and what actions can I take to shift it? And then, the smallest action, just having a conversation like we're having right now, it's got me fired up to be like, okay, I'm going to take on tomorrow. I'm going to do everything I said I got to do, when I'm going to do it by. I'm getting my workout in. I'm like, all that stuff, right? So just having these types of conversations will cause opportunity for action to take place. And with, that's my piece. So again, man, thank you so much for having me on here.
That's huge. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate that's huge to end on, yeah. And like
Yeah.
keyword action, just action, and
Yeah,
seeing you
action.
fired up is exactly
Yeah.
what it is. It's like you get it back to the basics,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it just becomes so simple, and it's just action. That's amazing. That's
yeah,
an amazing way to end off.
yeah,
Super appreciative of you, man. Great to see you. Great to
yeah.
catch up. We'll stay in
Yes.
touch. I hope we'll do more
Okay.
projects, whether it be in person when I'm out there or online out here. Thanks a lot,
100%.
man. Thank you for coming.
All
Thank
right.
you for joining us. Have a good
Absolutely.
one.
Love you, brother. Take care.
Later. You too, man.